The media in most developing countries are usually under strict supervision by various agents of government. Sometimes the freedom of speech and information seems very difficult to come by. Here in Nigeria, the answers process was very revealing based on the coverage of the news items by various media houses, particularly Arise News. Well, joining us for a review of the 2020 assessment of the role of media in Nigeria is Professor Ralph Akinfeleye, a scholar, media and communication expert. Glad to have you join us, Prof.
Thank you.
Good. Let's start this way. First of all, let's define the role of the media. I'm sure you've heard in many circles the media being talked about as the agenda-setting. It should be an agenda-setting thing for the media.
Yes, the media in any body politics their work goes beyond that of agenda setting. It's also they are also regarded as gatekeepers, and of course we see them as members of the fourth estate of the realm, and never members of the fourth estate of the wreck. So they have issues and obligation to the people.
To the people, and then of
like
course,
in the case of Nigeria.
Yeah, to the people, and of course, also holding the government accountable. How much of that do you think the media is doing here in our own circle?
Well, thank you. If you look at the Nigerian Constitution, particularly Chapter 2, popularly called the Fundamental Objectives and State Directives, State Policies. If you look at Section 22 there, is the journalistic obligation. It compels the media, the mainstream media, to monitor the government and make government accountable to the people at all times. Not even one time, at all times. If you look at that constitution, there is no other profession that is given that obligation to monitor governance. And therefore, the media, mainstream media in Nigeria, should exploit that opportunity to monitor government and make them accountable to the people at all times.
Okay.
How well? Your question. Well, from my own judgment and research, I will give the media a pass mark. Subject, of course, to some inherent boo-boos on their own part, and on the part of the regulator, and also on the part of government, and also on the part of the people. Because the media is an institution, a solid institution. If you look at the case of Nigeria, that the press is even older than Nigeria. The amalgamation of Nigeria was in 1914. But the media came into existence in Nigeria in 1859. So we are even older than the other estates. So therefore, we must play that role as the members of the fourth estate of the realm, and not members of the fourth estate of the wreck.
I'm glad you repeated that, sir.
During the past few years,
I would like to focus your attention on what you've just said, the fourth estate of the wreck. I would like you to expatiate on what that means, as opposed to the fourth estate of the wreck. But before, just to tag on to that, when you say that the media are the fourth estate of the realm as well, and that they should seize all the opportunities presented to them, what happens when they are being constrained in that space? What do they do? Because obviously there's some governments that are not as hospitable as others.
Yes. If you look at, I have read my inaugural lecture, delivered at the University of Lagos, and the title of that inaugural lecture, which is this one, is the fourth estate of the realm, or fourth estate of the wreck. The imperatives of social responsibility of the press. So for the press to do the right thing, they must be socially responsible. In the same time, also, the society that they serve must also be responsible, because the journalists are products of that society. So it is a win-win program. The media is expected to be socially responsible. the government and the people that are working to be socially responsible. So when you have a situation whereby the society is socially irresponsible, it will be an aberration to expect the press to be 100% socially responsible. So therefore, the government regulators should be able to regulate the press in such a way that it will fulfill its obligation as contained in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, Section 22, to monitor government and make government accountable to the people. Now, how can you now call them members of the fourth estate of the REC? One, the issue is that in the mainstream press, they are supposed to be the gatekeeper, they are supposed to be the agenda setter, they are going to be the promoter of peace, and they are supposed to be socially responsible. But when they deviate from that concept, they suddenly metamorphose into members of the fourth estate of the REC. And they don't even wreck the society, they even wreck themselves as professionals, they wreck also their institution, they wreck their position. And therefore, if you look at the coverage during the election, you will find out some of the watchdogs, which are members of the press, did not watch very well. And some of them, the watchdog, and they are unable to back when they're supposed to back. And again, during the election, they were also unable to bite when they're supposed to bite. So those people have moved from being members of the fourth estate of the REM to members of the fourth estate of the REC. And you also know that the watchdog, some of the watchdogs during the election period didn't watch well. And in fact, some of them have been invested with a virus. And some of them have been invested with rabies. And they need anti-rabies. So those are the people who are now moving from being members of the fourth estate to members of the fourth estate of the REC.
Whatever
so
that means,
members
Prof.
of the fourth estate of the REM. That is also. And let me go a little bit. The journalists, we are told in Mass 101. I went to University of Missouri School of Journalism. That's the first world school of journalism. We are supposed to monitor. We are supposed to watchdog. We are supposed to set the agenda. But in setting the agenda, we must also factor in the Nigerian cultural peculiarities, peculiarities in the coverage. But during the election, some of them were bought off. But if you look at the event that is going on at the moment, we now see that the Nigerian press, though may not be the freest, but in my own judgment, they are the most outspoken press anywhere in Africa. They may not be the freest, but they are the most outspoken.
All right.
Look at what they did during
Prof, let me come in here.
and SARS.
Yeah.
They took their lives, and they really did very well during the SARS, but they are being contaminated with occurrences of the social media.
Yeah,
and
good.
the social media.
You've talked about social media. We're going to
I don't
get
call them journalists.
to the
They are not
dangers.
journalists.
Prof.
They have not gone to any gear school. They are not editors. And if you want me to call the name I call them members, I call them information traffickers. They traffic with falsehood.
All right, Prof, let me come in here. Let me come in here, Prof.
So, although some of them have been
hope you can hear
educated,
me.
but they are not practicing journalism. They are practicing journalists.
All right, good.
Yep.
You can hear me. Yeah, we'll get to the social media
Yeah, I can hear you.
soon, briefly.
Okay.
But I was reading an article
right.
lately, either yesterday or the day before yesterday, and the article pointed out that incidentally, in Africa, most or quite a large number of the stories that we peddle are taken from foreign media because of the fact that we probably don't have, reporters scattered all over the place. So that we find out that we're reporting what the foreign media is reporting, which is negativity, poverty, and the likes. What's your response to this?
I hope Arise is not one of them.
Arise is definitely not one of them.
Arise is not one of them.
No, it's not.
And also, I also presume that China is not one of them.
Well, I don't know about, but I know about
TVC
Arise, and I can speak about Arise.
AIT is not one of them. But the other one, that has the one that you cannot reach, may be part of them. However, it is not that they are depending on foreign news. It's because of funding. How many Nigerian media owners will be able to fund people to have correspondents in New York, in Copenhagen, in Philadelphia, in Amsterdam, in Paris, in London? They cannot. And if you look at this, what we call media convergence, it is not only possible for you to be picking news from the foreign, they also should be able to pick news from you. That is the principle of reciprocity, of cordiality among the media people, both in Nigeria and in the diaspora. So I think the media owners should invest more on development of their correspondent, and so don't make our news to be left-footed. And I believe that the journalists also should also aspire to be creative. With the new technology, you don't need to be in New York or Washington to know what's happening there. They should be able to be creative, and they be able to not depend on foreign news or foreign correspondent alone, or media owners like CNN, Al Jazeera, and BBC, and the like. So they should be able to develop their own and compel those other foreigners to also respect reciprocity.
Okay, It looks like we're going to have to ask you to hold on with us for a bit. We're going on a brief break. When we come back, we want to carry on exploring more areas with you.
All right, glad to have you back. We still have the distinguished Professor, Media and Communications expert, Professor Ralph Akinfeleye. Prof, glad to know that you're still there. Let's talk about, it's one thing for the journalist, whether broadcast or print, to do their work and do it effectively and efficiently. But that borders on what you might call remuneration, what you might call cover, things like insurance, for them to be able to know that they can go out there and come back, they're protected. Let's talk about that and the environment within which they work.
Well, I think the issue of staff welfare is key to any meaningful professional practice. But unfortunately, in this country, it appears to me that some of the media owners don't believe that the media should be supported financially, and that the media welfare of the people working should also be religiously guarded and supported. So they don't do that. Many of them invest in the media, either radio, television, or newspaper, or just on point of politics. On politics. Whereas it goes further than politics. So staff development, staff welfare is significant. And that's the only reason also that the Professional Association, NUJ, Guild of Editors, Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, they should work together and put more emphasis on professionalism and insurance and the welfare of their staff, rather than doing thing. So the owners, some of them in my job, are selfish. They want to make all money without pulling back the profit to support the welfare of their staff. Journalism is one of the hazardous professions I've ever seen. It is gratifying, but it is very dangerous. Because many of the people you are going to be working with, particularly government, not Nigerian government, all government, are seen to be trying to cover up issues. And you, as a journalist, you are trained in your Mass 101 to uncover. So when I am trying to cover up things and somebody is trying to uncover, we cannot be friends, but we can still remain as loyal opponents. And this is the principle that the media owners should know, that the welfare is key to journalistic performance. Okay. And the insurance is key to people who are doing the hazardous work, especially people are sent to the hazardous beat. Hazardous beat, war prompt, like Boko Haram, Maiduguri, Northeast, that's a hazardous beat. But juicy beat, when you're sent to the state house, a state house correspondent, that's the juicy beat, or aviation correspondent.
Juicy beat.
So,
I guess you know what you're talking about.
Maybe the brown envelope. Professor, Professor, let me turn your attention, even though, let's leave the juicy bits for now, and turn your attention to the people you term the information traffickers. That's the social media people. I want to know your opinion. If we are looking at threats to regulate from the government side, regulate social media, and then you have the social media bill and the hate speech bill, is that attempt to stifle people on social media, could it have a knock-on effect on journalists? Because indirectly, it's almost like a constraint on free speech.
Well, if you look at the issue of fake news, hate speeches, and they are not new to us. As a matter of fact, from my research, fake news has been with us for over 129 years, precisely 1890. And it faded away. It is when Mr. Trump, who I call the editor general of fake news, came into being in 2016 or 17, resurrected fake news. Everything that you do that is not in consonance with your own ideology is fake. So fake news is not new. It's been with us. And again, for my research, over 35 nations of the world had made legislation to control fake news, hate speeches, but they have not been successful. Why? Because on the other hand, the fundamental objective, fundamental human rights, the freedom of the press, freedom of speech. And on the other hand, you cannot gang the press. You cannot padlock the air. It is impossible for any government to want to padlock the air. But those people working in there also must be seen to be socially responsible. And many times I tell my brother, that is our Honorable Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, that he is doing well, excellently well, but however, it's going to be difficult for him to want to padlock the air. I don't think he says he wants to padlock the air. He said there must be synergy between the social media and the mainstream. The mainstream also have to wake up from their slumber, i.e., they should be seen to be doing the right and doing as fast as possible so that they can overtake the social media.
Let me take your...
You will recall, the owner of Facebook was in Nigeria some years ago, and they asked him, "Are you practicing journalism?" The man said no. They are just providing information platform for the people to exchange information rapidly as possible and at no cost. He didn't claim that they are practicing journalism.
Yeah, Prof.
And it's those who have weak internal mechanisms will believe what they see on social media. I still believe and I still say that many of them are information traffickers and trafficking in falsehood.
Yeah, Prof.
And it can cause disharmony, as we have seen in so many cases. Yeah,
you talked about the mainstream
social media and the mainstream to work together.
Waking up and being fast.
Can kill one another.
Okay, you're talking about mainstream media waking up and being fast. Now that calls to my mind the question of scoop, being the first to break the news, and being the news outlet that can be trusted over time. Can you speak to these two divides on how news should be carried?
Yeah, sometimes if you look at social media, talking about scoop, sometimes they scoop the same out of the scoop by publishing falsehood. Sometimes they scoop themselves from the scoop by publishing falsehood. And therefore, it is important for the mainstream media to do follow-up, to do tie-back. And are you listening? Are you hearing me at all? There's a problem here. Huh?
Sorry,
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead with your point, sir.
I am also saying I am also saying, for instance, the mainstream people, some of our colleagues are very lazy. And they don't understand, and they don't adhere, they don't respect deadline. And they don't go in depth. They don't respect tie back, follow up. Take, for instance, last 2 weeks, the Honorable Minister of Education was speaking to the press, and he told us that the Nigerian out of school children has reduced from about 8 million to 6 million. 6 million of Nigerian out of school. That is significant. Nobody followed it up. Why? What is he doing? How can we overcome this out of school children, 60 million of them? They cause disharmony within the society, out of school. So I expected the social media and the mainstream to follow up with the minister. Congratulations, we have reduced from 8 million to 6 million. What are the government positions in reducing this further to 1 million or to even 20 or 100 people? No follow-up.
Okay,
no
Professor, it looks like we're not going to be able to follow up on what you're saying, yes, unfortunately, but we've really gained quite a bit from this discussion. Thank you for your time.